Guib Galéir Accordia August Tofoil Road. Welcome to Be My Guest with me, Mary Honan on LíR Media TV, supporting the Samaritans, Limerick and Tipperary, Clare's Wish Foundation in Limerick, and Deel Animal Rescue in West Limerick. And oh my God, but I have the great Celine Hession on here with me, or Celine Carney now, but she's actually, Celine Hession, we all know her as, here in Ireland and in the Irish dancing world. Hello, Celine.
Hello, Mary. How are you?
Oh, I'm grand. You were the very first Jean Butler in this country.
I don't know about that.
Well, you brought Irish dancing to the TV, really. You really did.
Can I just say one thing, Mary? I really want to do this for all the lovely people I met in Irish dancing over 55 years. And I never really forgot a lot of those people. So that's, I just want to kind of share that with them.
Yeah. You know, Celine, when I said that I was going to be interviewing you, the amount of people who said, oh, she was my favorite Irish dancer of all times. And, oh, the great Celine Hession, and oh my God, her school, even people who were not teachers and adjudicators, went to dancing years ago. Even Anna Moore, who Kelly Harrington mentioned in her semi-final win, said, oh, the great Celine Hession, she had fabulous teachers. Anna's daughter, Tracy, went to dancing.
Yes. Yeah.
They were all looking forward to you.
Thanks, Mary. But listen, I'll go back to the beginning, Mary. I came from a house of music. My dad played pipes, fiddle, tin whistle, and he was also an adjudicator of music. My mum was a Trojan worker. She kept lodgers in her house all her life, and she had great, she loved the culture. I had one sister, Mary, who was very musical, but sadly she passed away from cancer at 47. I had one brother, Carl, who taught himself music at 9. And by the time he was 11, he was just brilliant by the time he was 9. So he went on then to get the right teachers, and he had a great career. He was a teacher, a composer, a musician in traditional, classical, and jazz.
Okay, so did you ever take up the music?
Well, a little bit of piano, but not too much. I think I was too much into the dancing.
Isn't it funny? The same with me, Celine. My family are Welsh and English. My father was English.
Yes.
And there was a piano and an accordion and an organ, and any instrument I wanted would have been sent from England. And all I was dancing at the time. And it's a great disappointment to me now. I wish I had actually learned the piano.
I know. So anyway, my memories of going to feshes were, my dad was always the driver. And he would bring anyone that wanted to go to a fesh, he'd fit them into the car, even if they had to fit in the boot. But the feshes back in those times, I'd say I was about maybe 9 or 10.
Yeah.
Was up in the back of a lorry.
Wow. Well, I was a little after that, but I remember you dancing, Celine, and I remember, you won't remember it, of course, but my mom used to always talk about, Celine Hession came over to me at the All Ireland in the Mansion House, and you came over to her and you said, her slip jig was just fabulous, and my mother, that meant the world to my mother, was that
lovely
Hession came over and come.
Yes.
You know, and it's funny, we all have memories of you, Celine. You know, and fond memories and things that memories that make us proud that we knew you or know you.
Lovely, Mary. Thank you. So anyway, Mary, the next Sunday we go off anyway, and the next Sunday we drive to a big field, and the next thing we see 3 makeshift stages. There'd be one for dancing, one for music, and one for singing. And sure, look at, you just enjoyed it, and you got on with it, and you did it. Do you know what I mean? And those venues were in places like Chalk McConnell, Bacon, Tarmanbarry. You never heard of such places.
I never heard of those names.
No. You know, And that was the way we danced at the time. You know, we didn't know any better. And we loved it.
Yeah.
And of course, if it was a rainy day, we had to just get wet and dance, you know. But back in those days, I don't know why I seem to look back. It always seemed to be sunny. There were always lovely days.
I was going to ask you that. Were there?
Yeah.
Was it that we loved what we did when we were children? That we blanked out the rain. That it didn't matter to us. Was it always sunny? And it's just not so sunny.
See, it really was the simple things in life that kept us happy. Do you know, really, when I think of it. And then what I used to love is when we'd be on the way home, we'd sing the whole way home in the car. The fun we had, like. Now, the only big fish that we used to have at the time was a fish called Celine On LíR. It was held in November in the Tipperary. It was a 4-day fish, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it was very well run and some beautiful dancers. So I was lucky enough to win the Connacht Championship under 12 that year. So after that then, as things happened, I didn't have a teacher. I was hanging around then there for about a year or two, and I kind of wasn't doing, well, I was always doing a bit of dancing around the house. But one particular day, I used to have my dad's record player in the kitchen. And whatever way I was kind of listening to the music, and didn't I start doing trebles to a reel, which I had never, ever seen in my life before. And I kept saying, this is great. What is this? I kept doing it. And next thing I said, I'm going to make up a step. And before I knew where I was, I had a step made up. And I said, you know, I'm going to call that dance now the treble reel. So the next thing I said, I'm going to make up now a few steps, because I used to love going to Black Hills. And if I went to Black Hills, I'd always do a few steps at a session for a bit of fun. So before I knew where I was, I had this dance made up, 4 steps and a lead around. And I was going to be all set for the next Black Hill. I was going to have my new dance. So the next thing I said to myself, which was very cheeky of me, I said, I think I'm after inventing that dance.
Well, you did.
I was convinced I invented it. No, I possibly didn't. It possibly was done before, but I never saw it ever been done.
No, I didn't either. To be honest with you, Celine, I did before. When I was a child and I was watching TV, and I'd see you and Donegal and Weenaco and Lord rest him dancing on TV, and the high heels, and I had a mother who was always creating, and while my dad was asleep, she'd be drawing my costumes on his back on a piece of paper. Through a war, and she'd draw the costumes, but she was trying to create something when I was a bit older that had a little heel on, that looked more for Irish dancers, and it was on the same style of shoe as you used to wear. And I used to wonder, how can you dance in heels that are that height, you know?
Bother me a bit. No, not a bit.
No, it wouldn't. Wouldn't. You wouldn't think twice when you're doing
Mary, the next thing happened is so funny, because I think this is what introduced me to teaching, because I never dreamed of teaching dancing. I was about 15, I was going to school, and one evening, about 6 of my neighbours' children came to the door and they said, we'd love to learn dancing. To me, like, I was 15. So I said, oh, come on in, sure, why not? And I pushed back the table and the chairs and taught them something. And the next day there was about 10. And the next day there was about 12. And the numbers were building up all the time. And I was really enjoying it. And I couldn't believe all the learning. So anyway, the next year, I was 16. And there must have been about 40 in the sitting room. And I was saying, oh my God, what am I going to do with this?
I can make money out of this.
I had to put one half of them sitting down and the other half of them teaching them. So that was really how I was kind of saying, I really like this. And I said, I love the kids, and I kind of like what I'm doing. And I said, there's just something about this that I like. So shortly after that, then I got a phone call one day, and it was from a nun in Clifton called Sister Concilio. And she said, I think she was talking to my mom, but anyway, the message was that she heard I was teaching, and would I think of going to Clifton to teach the whole school from junior infants up to 6? There was about 170 kids. And would I do it on a Friday? And if I did it, I'd get £10. Now, £10, a lot of money that day.
A lot of money.
So anyway, I was kind of thinking about it, and I was saying, I wonder will I try it? And sure, look, I said, I try it. And I always go back to school next year if I don't like it, and I can make up my mind. So anyway, lo and behold, anyway, my poor dad was the designated driver because I was too young for a driver's license. And I headed off, and I just adored it. I absolutely loved the kids and the teachers and the dancing and everything. And that was the start of it.
Isn't it funny? And it becomes a bug, Celine.
Yes.
I suppose it's like, when you hear the government in the beginning of the COVID pandemic, things like retrain anyone in the arts, have to retrain. They've obviously never been creative people.
Yes.
Say that because the arts is far more than just teaching dance or teaching music. It's your soul. It's what makes you breathe. It's nothing to do with a job. You'd actually do it many times and not get paid.
So yeah.
And there's no other job. You can't retrain the soul.
Yes, you're so right. Yes. So the next job I got then, and I got it shortly after, was, imagine, of all places, Ballyvaughan.
I heard of that.
The local community rang me and they said, would you come from 6 to 8 every Tuesday, and we'll guarantee you 50 pupils.
Wow, Celine.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But there again then, my dad was the driver again. And what I used to adore about going to Ballyvaughan, I'm sure you heard of the Droney family, Chris Droney.
Yeah.
Well, we used to call to Chris's house on the way out. And we used to take Chris's 3 kids in the car to bring them into dancing. And Chris's dad's name was Jim. And of course, they were all concertina players. So we used to bring Jim with us as well. And my dad and Jim would drop me at the hall with the kids, and the two of them would go to the pub. My dad and Jim, old Jim. Jim was well into his 90s. So then I would teach in the hall. And I used to love it. I used to have them flying around the place, hitting the roof. And I had loads of boys, beautiful boys. I had about 10 fabulous boys, and they were really good. But then on the way home, then we'd have great fun with my dad and Jim, because they'd have a few pints and they'd be a little bit, they'd be laughing a bit, and we'd be kind of having fun with them coming home in the car. So then before we'd leave for home, then into Droney's, and Chris's wife would have the most beautiful table set and her own brown bread and the tea, and we'd all sit around the table. And then before we'd go, there was always a tune and a step. I'd have to get up and do a few steps. And wasn't that a lovely life? Like, when you think about it.
It was really lovely. I mean, it was. I mean, I suppose during my time, it was. Get up and you'd be asked to do a step, and you'd innocently get up. You didn't even think twice about it. There was no, you weren't ashamed, you weren't shy.
No.
You weren't nervous. I don't know whether we're some kind of.
You did it for the fun. You
did it for fun, and you also did it, I think, because it gave you a sense of empowerment as well, because I can do this. People actually want to see me dance, and psychologically it made you feel good about yourself. Yeah. And it's back to, again, the government telling you, oh, get a job, retrain. You can't retrain the spirit or the soul. That's the way you feel, and it's your passion. And but Celine, you were an example of the great dancer who could become a great teacher. Doesn't always happen. Sometimes have
so
a great
right.
teacher
Yeah.
who isn't a great dancer, a great teacher who mightn't have been a great dancer, or mightn't have even won a competition in their lives, or won very little, but they're an exceptional teacher, and vice versa. You could have a world champion who just can't teach or doesn't want to teach. You seem to straddle that very well. You seem to have the great teacher, and then Gemma, your daughter, came afterwards, but you were also the great dancer.
Oh, God.
But
so then the next thing happened was kind of a very lucky thing that happened, because my dad used to often say, I think Celine is kind of lucky because some little things happened for me. But this priest, a priest called Father Canavan, he called to the house shortly after I started in Ballyvaughan. And he says, we were all talking to him at the door. We brought him in and we sat down. He said, I'd like to start a Cayley club in Tuam, he said. And I was wondering, would Celine think of coming down on a Wednesday night from 8 to 10? So I kind of said, well, sure I will. What about? Again, my poor dad drove me down. And
poor dad.
He did. He loved it. He loved it.
I hope you paid your dad, Celine.
Anyway, what happened was, when I went into the hall, my God, there was about 50 people in there. I couldn't believe all the people. And there was loads of men. So anyway, the first thing I had to do, I said, who knows basic steps and who doesn't? So, okay, one half of them, I put them sitting down because they knew the basics. So I had to then start off and teach the other people the basics. So they were flying after a few weeks. They were doing the Siege of Venice, the wall to Limerick, and they were great. So they used to go home then at 9. So then at 9 o'clock, then we used to take the ones that could dance. And within a few weeks, they could do 8 hands. They could do so much. With mixed teams, they were so good. So then the priest then kind of said, he said, I think I'd like to enter them in some of the Cayley competitions. And I said, Father Canavan, I said, you can't, because I said, I'm not a registered teacher. I said, I can't do my exam until I'm 20. And I'm only 17. So he said, we see about that, he said. Now, as it happened, this Father Canavan was on the commission, and he was a great friend of Seamus McAnulla's, and he was a really good...
Seamus, lovely.
Yes. So the following Sunday, Father Canavan went up to Dublin. He put his case in front of him, and the most thing he was saying was that I was promoting culture, because I was going down, and I was going voluntary. I wasn't getting any money. And he said, could they give me a semi-registration? And lo and behold, I got it. Which meant that the children I was teaching in my own house could dance in competitions. Now, could you believe that?
You leave it to, thank God, leave it to the priests and the nuns. They had great school.
So that's what happened, Mary. So then from there on, after that, I had to get a hall because the numbers were getting so big and I needed space and everything. And they kind of started then slowly going to competitions, and they really were good. They were very good, some of them, for not being taught that long. Yeah. So anyway, I was kind of enjoying all that work. And then the next thing happened out of the blues. I was at the flag show in Cashel, and it was 1969. And as it happened, I met this guy called Michael Slevin, and he was from RTE. And I knew him because we had been up doing a television programme with some of our dancers. Actually, Maura O'Connell from the Clare School was in that group dancing. Right. Yeah. Maura was about 15. She was in that group in Dublin doing it. So Michael knew me, and he came over to me and he said, it was about 2 o'clock in the day. And he says, I'm doing a programme this evening, he said, at 6 o'clock. And he says, I'd love you to dance. But he said, you know what would be lovely? He said, have you anyone you could dance with? And I said, I really haven't, Michael. But I said, do you want me to look around and see what I can do?
Enter Donica.
I didn't even know I was going to dance with a girl. I hadn't a clue. So I started off anyway, looked everywhere and looking for Donica. Now, I didn't really know Donica that well. I used to love to watch him at Cayley's. He'd give a few steps, and I used to love watching him dancing because he was really good. But I hadn't a clue where he was. But lo and behold, I found him. So I found him and I told him the story. Well, God, he hopped to it. Like he was dying for it. So he says, come on.
Like he was passionate. Celine, he was passionate about dancing, Donncha.
Oh, he was.
He really was. I mean, you could see that oozed from the screen.
Yeah.
Even as a child, when I was watching it, and I used to think that man really loves to dance. You can't obviously verbalize the feelings, but you know, you knew straight away looking at him how much he loved. And what struck me about the two of you dancing was, especially, I've never seen it done before, and I haven't seen it done since, was the heavy slip jig that you, Donncha, did.
Yeah, but he made up all that.
It was just breathtaking to watch, and the stamina. You remind me of Tony Tyrrell always said to me that what he used to do was he'd get his dancers to do the lead around and 2 steps, and if they started to tire, he'd get them to start all over again. And by the time they'd have done it 6 times, their stamina.
Yes.
And I was just amazed, and I was thinking, God, it was like to us, Celine, when we were competing, and we can only dream of that level of stamina. But you were so fit.
Anyway, we found a little room in Cashel, and what we did was, because the time was so short before the program, we decided he'd learn 3 of my steps and I'd learn 3 of. That's what we did, and we exchanged steps. So we did about 6 steps and a lead around and a side step. So we learned it, and you know, nobody was kind of nervous about it or bothered about it. So anyway, as it happened, the same day, it was a good job I had the pants on. I had a bloody miniskirt on. So anyway, what was lovely was they kind of put us standing up at the top of kind of steps. And it was kind of lovely the way it was kind of televised kind of up. And it kind of gave a lovely kind of a look to the way they did it.
Yeah.
So anyway, they televised it at 6 o'clock and there wasn't a problem. And then at 7 o'clock, we were all brought into the hotel to sit down and watch it.
Wow.
Yes. So now I have to say, I got a shock when I saw us dancing. I couldn't believe it. I was saying, oh my God, I just got a shock. Yeah. I couldn't believe it. You know, the music was lovely, the tapping, they did the taps lovely, hear all the rhythm, you know, and whatever went up the stairs.
Celine, was it a conscious decision for you, number one? I mean, it was long before, say, the river dance and the Lord of the Dance and Feet of Flames, when the costumes started to go shorter and sexier. And people think, oh, river dance made Irish dancing sexy. No, Celine Hession and Donegal and Weena actually made Irish dance sexy. Somewhere in between, our costumes got slightly longer than you were wearing it. You were wearing the really short skirt. Yes, you were wearing the dark
It's very simple, Mary. It was very simple.
Yeah, it was simple, but it was short. And I remember when I was 14 years in Bunratty, and our costumes were to the knee. And Clem O'Sullivan, who was our boss, you wouldn't even suggest wearing a costume short for Clem. Because we wanted to look like the 19th century. Whereas Hession and Donegal and were the very first people, well, you were the very first I ever saw with a skirt above the knee.
Yes.
And you know, when I see people saying, oh, river dance made Irish dancing sexy, I think they obviously never saw Celine Hession.
God. But Mary, I must tell you, the following morning, now Gay Byrne was a guy that never really loved Irish music or dancing or singing too much. But the following morning, I hope you don't think I'm bragging when I say this, but he said, I saw 2 people, he said, dancing last night, he said. And he said, they certainly, he said, have done something different that's going to change Irish dancing.
Yeah.
Now, for Kid Byrne to say that, like, You know,
Yeah, he wasn't into Irish dancing,
yes,
and
he wasn't.
he never really showcased it until
No, no,
dance. And
yes.
you know, but how do you think Irish dancing, Celine, has changed since you? I mean, you
Well,
went through it in the sexy
yeah,
times, and
yes.
you've been
But
through it in the
like,
competition, and you've been
there's
through it.
no, yeah, there's no doubt about it. Like, it has changed so much, but like, it has become such an art form. The stuff they're doing and the skill, it's amazing what they're actually doing, I think, you know. But just that, like, it has changed so much. And then I suppose, you know, you have to move with the times,
With the times. And you
you
like the
know.
way you obviously like the way it's moving. It's very
Well,
it's very athletic now. There's a lot of
well,
athleticism in
I'll
it.
tell, I'll
But
tell you now,
very,
Mary,
very
I'll tell you, yeah, if I'm looking back on things, Gemma joined the school when she was in 2000.
that's your
And
daughter.
after that, yeah, and after that, like, I didn't have any pressure or stress because she was the boss. And I have to say, I loved going to the professions to see kind of her kids. I'm talking now about the Clare Greenies and all the lovely boys she had, those Keenies and the Gardeners and Colin Keneally, those that were all world champions. I just loved that dancing that time. I thought it was magnificent, like, from all the schools,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
were brilliant.
now you have, as you mentioned, you have your
Yeah,
coach Claire Graney and the Gardner
yeah,
brothers. The
yeah,
Gardner
that's
brothers are
right.
still performing
They are.
and
Yeah,
still ultra
yeah,
creative. I only shared a
yeah.
video. I only shared a video of them dancing. The night before, you sent me an email to say I'll be able to do the show on
Yes,
Wednesday at 11.
right.
But they're fantastic
Oh,
ambassadors for Irish dance,
yeah,
and
yes, yeah,
and
yes,
Colm Keaney
yeah,
and all of them, you know, and all of their
yeah,
contemporaries, everyone
yes,
in the
yeah,
dancing world from
yeah,
that
yeah.
from
But
all
you
years.
know, Mary, I think back back then in 2000, like, Deirdre and Gemma were the two teachers who taught all those kids, and then there was another lovely girl, Mary. And I just think they were just so lucky how they got this bunch of talented kids, and they were all kind of around the same age. Well, no, around the same time. Like, you could never think that you'd be getting 6 world champions at the one time, and 5 of them boys. Like,
Yeah, you're
you know,
very lucky to have,
yeah,
you could go through years teaching.
you could.
Never find, never find a Colm Keaney or a Claire Graney or Gardner brothers or anything. But, you know, what do you think of the phrase? You know, what do you think of the phrase that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard? What do you do with the child that you see, Celine, who's ultra talented, but doesn't either have the parents who can afford to bring them to the competitions? Do you think it's do you think it's too expensive now, or do you think it's comparative to any talent, anything?
It is, there's no doubt about it. It is expensive, yeah. But you know, Mary, there's another way of looking at it. I think it's lovely how all those kids have a pastime, they have a hobby, they have friends. I'm wonderful for them. It's something they'll always have in life. You know, I know the dancing is important, but I really think that, you know, they have great friendships and keeps them on the right road. And I think that's more important than anything, really.
Well, you know, I mean, parents, you know, some people will say, "Oh, it's as it is. It's not cheap."
Yes.
And the teaching part of it, the teacher gets the lead of anything, but after that, it's costumes and the competitions and that. But your child could be in trouble. Your child could be in prison. Could be in a reform school, and you know they are every weekend. You know they're practicing a healthy activity. You know they're with people who are like-minded at a fesh, people who also love dance, and you know they're not going to be in trouble. And
that's it, and that's so important. Yeah, and another thing, Mary, I'd love to say, one of the things that I really, when I look back on my life and dancing, you know, I really found a lot of pressure from parents. You know, I found it tough, and simply because by nature, I'm a bit of a softie.
Yeah.
And the only advice I give to the young teachers is don't let the parents get to you. And I really mean that. I don't know how you're going to do it, but don't, because you'll ruin your lives. Do you know what I mean? You'll start getting stressed out.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not worth it.
Do you let parents into the classes?
Oh, no. Never.
No.
Never. No.
Did you ever?
In the beginning, I did. Yeah. In the beginning, I did.
I think everyone does, but I think it's counterproductive myself, because I think children spend more time looking to see are their parents watching them, looking to see am I doing okay, mommy or daddy, or and they don't know who to listen to. Whereas when they're in a class on their own without the parents, focus them more.
Mary, yeah. But anyway, Mary, to get back to Donegal, we danced together for 30 years. Isn't that some record?
Wow, Celine.
And I think we only had one fight. One fight in 30 years. Now, he was, let me tell you, he was the taskmaster. Before we would do anything, particularly a television program, that fellow would put you in front of a mirror, and if he made you do a step once, you do it 20 times. He got it right.
Yeah.
Now, the real perfectionist.
But isn't it important, Celine, that in any partnership there's always one who takes the lead, so to speak, and decides, you know. Otherwise, I think if you were both easygoing, nothing would happen. Or if you were both taskmasters, you'd get each other's nerves, and you'd end up just going your own way. I think there has to be one. You see it with Torval and Deel. They're the prime example. Jane Torval is really okay. She's driven, but she's quiet, and she was often brought to tears by Christopher Dean because of his perfectionism.
Definitely, Mary, you're so right. Yes.
And you need somebody like that, because they wouldn't have been the way they were if it hadn't been for Dean.
But we had a great relationship, and he was so loyal, and we just were so fond of each other, you know, and that was the great part of it. And when he passed away, I just couldn't believe that somebody like him could die, because he had such energy, and he was the very same in his job. He could bring that height of paperwork home from his job and do it.
What did he do outside of work?
He worked at Customs and Excise. He had a pretty good job up there, and he'd bring that amount of stuff home, you know, sometimes from work.
You never see that side of Donegal. When you're watching on the television, you see Donegal O'Muinacon, the dancer, Celine Hession, the dancer. And and that's what I love about these shows, is that I suppose I'm trying to show Celine Hession, the human being, the outside of dancing. What it is that drove you, what it is that made you the woman you are today.
Yes. Now, can I say one thing, Mary? I married my husband in 1973, and I have to say one thing about him. He drove me to the 4 corners of Ireland to dance with Donegal O'Muinacon. And we'd be lucky if we got a $5 for the petrol. We went everywhere to concerts, everywhere. And
but that is back again to what I said about you can't retrain the spirit. We would still dance today for nothing.
Yes.
We would teach for nothing half the time. Half the time I went out to classes, and parents might say, you know, Mary, is there any chance I can give it to you the money next week? And you still have to pay the hall, but you'd know they were going to pay you. And even if they didn't, you know, you weren't going to be too fussed about it. Life would go on, you know. Monday would come. So it's not that important. You never did your adjudicators, did you?
Well, the main reason I didn't do my adjudicators is my husband always said, you're not doing it because you get first to everyone. First to everyone, he says. You're not doing it, you'd be useless. But
I think it would have been an extraordinary...
No, I'll tell you what I do love to do. If I go into a competition and I've nobody annoying me now and I'm watching it and I have the book and I'm able to mark down, but I'd always pick the top 5. I just like that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have a problem. And it's very hard to put it into what they have, but they just have something, you know, and they just stand out. You can always pick the top 5. So easy.
But getting back
would you have found Mary as a judge? Would you have found that?
Yeah, well, I always think it's you know, in a world championships, there's so many children that you could always, you know, you have 10 or 20 children that any judge could probably on any given day go with.
Yes.
Standard is so high, but there's always one that will actually stand out, whether it's they're stylish. I love a stylish.
Yes.
That doesn't mean sometimes you'll actually go with a dancer that wouldn't normally be your style of dancer, but they happen to be the best on that day. Technically, they're the best. I mean, they're the best. Everything is on point on that particular day. But another child that might be second or third might be the style of dancer you like, but they might have just messed up on that day. And you're saying to yourself, you know, but yeah, you can, your top 10, I think you can always see straight away.
You can.
And likewise, you can see your bottom straight away because they're always either out of time or they've made a mistake or they've stopped and walked off. But it's the group, there's a group of children in the middle. Yes, absolutely. That you have to work really hard to separate out, I find, you know, because they could all have varying degrees of timing problems or feet.
That's it, yes.
Carriage problems, but you have to try and find the child that has the least of those to try and... That's it. Yes, that's the challenge, because the top 10 I think the top 10 will always show themselves, or the top 20 will always show themselves in a 200. And you see,
it all boils down to talent, really. They have to have the talent.
And talent always does show, but sometimes you look at a child dancing and you say, gosh, she's beautiful, but she needs more stamina, or he needs more stamina. Or his carriage, if he'd only pull up on his shoulders, and he's got great rhythm, and you know, or you have a child that has everything but they can't stay in time.
That's it. Another problem. Yes. Yeah.
Or they have absolutely fabulous timing, but their carriage is atrocious, and you're there trying to, you know.
But it's just fantastic that it has become, without a doubt, one of the best art forms in the world. I don't think any other country has that kind of there's something brilliant about Irish dancing in all over the world. That's what I think. Maybe I'm wrong.
It's a very complicated art form as far as dance is concerned, because with ballet, quite a lot of it can be done. It's a performance. You walk around the stage. In many cases, a female has the male to support them, physically support them. Irish dancing, from the minute you start to the minute you finish, your level of stamina has to remain the same, and you can't stop. And your legs are, for the most part, straight, whereas in ballet...
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so true, Mary.
Very difficult art form. And then you have to keep your body straight without being...
Oh, you do. Yeah, you have to have this kind of a lovely natural carriage.
Naturally.
And there's nothing like the nice foot placement. There's nothing to beat that. You know, if you can have that right through.
Do you think that dancing, the style of dancing has changed dramatically since you were dancing?
Well, you see,
overcrossing and...
Well, you see, the whole thing has changed, Mary. The whole of the dancing has changed. I mean, the elevation now you have to do light dancing, and the extension of the leg and the lift and the spring, and sure, that was never there in our time, ever. We didn't dance that way. I don't think it anyway.
What do you think of the idea of having elements in competitions like rocks and cross keys and
no, I don't.
To separate out dancers? Some would say.
I don't think they look right. Not in what they're doing today. That's just me now. Yeah. I think they were lovely in my time, but I don't think. Well, yeah, an odd rock is lovely, but I don't like cross keys at all.
Don't you?
No, not in the dancing of today. No.
And you did lots of them.
Loads of them. No, I don't.
And I did lots of them. I did 5 cross keys in 5 rocks and 4 cross keys.
Yes.
In my steps. And I love cross keys, but I love them to be done as a cross key. Sometimes you see children doing scissors, but I would call it scissors instead of a cross key where you roll the ankle.
Yeah.
And you're saying not do it and do it wrong.
You know, the one lovely thing that every dancer has to have, even back in our day, and now you have to have rhythm.
Yeah, it's paramount.
It's one thing that never changes. You have to have it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can just see the child that comes out and you say, oh, she's beautiful, or he's beautiful, and his carriage is perfect, and feet are beautiful.
Yes.
And he's losing time, or she's losing time, and you're there, and you can't unhear the loss of time. You, as a judge, I can't say, oh, I'll ignore it, because it's there. You know, and it's there, and you're there saying, oh, everything else is perfect. But
and you see, it's beautiful to see the loose ankles. You know what I mean? And the looser the ankles are, the nicer the rhythm is. Like if you tighten up your foot at all, you won't hear that lovely looseness, and you won't hear that lovely power and that lovely.
To me, Colin Dunn had that, just that looseness of ankles, and the total natural, the natural style, and the loose ankles, and the perfect rhythm. Do you know? Sometimes less is more.
That's right, Mary. You're so right. Yes, yes.
I think people put in things, and they put so much rhythm in that they're not always on the beat. Not always.
Yes, yeah.
And then sometimes people can be dazzled by so much rhythm that they don't actually hear that they're slightly out of time. What's next for you, Celine? Do you actually go into the classes with Gemma and
No, not too much now.
Deirdre's great. Great to have somebody like Deirdre.
I still know what's happening. Like, you know, I mean, I know like how they're getting on results and all that type of thing, you know. But I love to keep in touch with the dancing on Facebook now and on YouTube, and I love that. Yeah. YouTube, I'd watch all the dancers on YouTube. I love that. I do. I enjoy that. Yeah.
David Gainey now has done extraordinary collaborations with dancers from different schools, and it's the light and shade that I love in David's shows in the collaborations. The light and shade between the styles of dancers, his style and the people he's collaborating with, the dancers.
Yes.
The feminine versus the masculine when he's dancing collaborating with girls, and you can see the style, but they're both doing the same steps, but you can see the light and shade between the two of them. I love that. I love the way that has gone, and I love. Did you love Riverdance and Lord of the Dance?
Beautiful. But I have one sad thing to tell you. Donica didn't like it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
No.
It wasn't. Donica was the purist.
No, he didn't like it at all. He wouldn't go through it or anything. We used to fight about it, but no.
Yeah.
He didn't. No. He was a real purist.
Yeah.
Whereas I loved it.
patently obvious watching Donncha that Donncha was grounded in the traditional.
Oh, he was. Oh, he was. He really was. Yeah, yeah.
You know, and as I say, I mean, you know, watching you and Donncha as growing up, and watching everything, the costumes,
Yes.
As I say, the shoes.
Yeah.
We didn't think of it. I didn't think of it as sexy because you were a child. You didn't.
I know.
It's been sexy, but you thought of it as, gosh, that this is fabulous, and
No.
I want heels like that. I want heels like Celine in my shoes, and I couldn't understand why we were wearing. Because when I was dancing, when we started off, there were the nails in the shoes, and they were awful. Because I was tiny. I was the smallest in every. I'm only 4 now, but I was the smallest in every competition. And the heavy shoes with the nails, and then the fiberglass came in.
No,
they were still too heavy for me because I was tiny, and all I wanted was shoes like Celine Hession. You have no idea how you.
I couldn't bear the other shoes with the laces up the front. I used to call them nun's shoes.
They look like nun's shoes.
And I refused to wear them. They were like nun's shoes.
And all my teachers in school were nuns with the long habits and big heavy shoes, and they were like nun's shoes. That's exactly what it looked like. Because they were black, and because they are black, I can't understand why the shoes haven't progressed to the point that they're a little bit lighter and maybe a bit of a heel, a Celine Hession heel. Maybe we should create a shoe with a Celine Hession heel. But I don't think the heels you wore would be suitable nowadays anyway.
Oh, no.
Not with what is being done, because when you were dancing, a lot was rhythm. It was rounded. It was round, and everything was based on rhythm. Now it's and spins and toe work and everything. So it was just fantastic to watch. It was, and I'll try and put in some of your videos into this interview as well for people to see.
Great, Mary.
What are you going to do as far as dancing now? How is COVID affecting the school?
Well, of course, they couldn't do anything really, except a little bit online, but they couldn't. But they're kind of back now, but they're not kind of fully back, Because what can they do really? There's not much until everything
working on the internet is not the same. Did they do the Zoom?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of that. They did, yeah. They kept in touch with the kids. They did. Oh, they did a lot, yeah. But please God, you'd never know now, because I think they are hoping to have an Oireachtas this year, a Connacht Oireachtas. So if that happens, it'll kind of get things working again.
Well, I mean, they've just announced today that electric picnic had been refused permission. Now they're being allowed to run it. They're being allowed to run it.
Oh.
But apparently, I think it's Laois. Is it Laois County Council has to get permission? But
they have to cut the numbers.
Look, they had to allow it when they allowed 40,000 into a GA hall. What are your views, Celine, on the fact that Irish dancing can't seem to get back, and yet we are the most socially distanced art form? Our dancers from the earliest are brought up with discipline. Yes. They're brought up to know that they cannot bump off each other. They have to hold their distance.
I know. Yes. Yeah.
And yet we can't open up a dance school, but they can have 40,000 at a GAA match.
Well, that's wrong.
But and 75% on the trains.
That's because it's outdoors. You see.
Yeah, but the trains were 75% full.
I know.
And you can't have a funeral. You can only have 50 at a funeral, and they're telling people if 100 at a wedding, but you can't go over to each other at the
Yes,
at a table. You can't mix with other tables, but yet people can hug at a GAA match. It's just the rules don't make any sense to me.
Yes, absolutely.
And it certainly doesn't make sense that dancing classes and ballet classes can't be back.
That it should be. It definitely should be. They really should.
So, what was I going to say to you? Where to now with you and the dancing, Celine? Will you?
Well, I've done my bit
classes
for
when it's
55
over.
years.
Huh?
I've done my bit for 55 years.
You've retired from it now.
Yeah. It's the time for me.
Well, Celine, I mean, you still have an awful lot to give to them.
Well, I certainly, if I was watching a dancer now, I'd be able to pinpoint what they're doing wrong, that kind of thing, or look for faults, you know.
Do you think Gemma has inherited your style of dance, or has she her own style?
I think she's a way better teacher than me.
Yeah,
that's what I think. I think she's a kind of a very good artistic brain. She does a lovely show every single year. She's done it for the last 20 years. She does it in the town hall in Galway. And it's just all different stuff. It's all a mix of all kinds of dancing. And she loves that kind of thing.
And I remember you very kindly asked me if I wanted to go to the prom, the
trad prom.
And I was sick that weekend. I couldn't go, which I was really disappointed about. But you've been very involved in that.
Yes. Oh, that's a lovely show. Lovely show.
You've been very involved in that. But
we've been involved for the last 20 years in that show. I think 2005 it started, I think. Well, I know Cahill was 10 when he started Cahill Keeney in that show.
And
he was in it last Sunday, and he's going to be 30 next year. So it's that many years.
But Celine, isn't it fantastic that Irish dancing can bring somebody, as I said one time, from the cradle to the grave?
Yes.
Donica and Winnicon, sadly, that was true as well. From the very earliest stage, from birth almost to death, you can be involved in Irish dancing in some capacity, whether it's dancing or teaching or judging or just being part of the school.
Yes.
It's something that's there with you for the rest of your life. It's you can't get out of your system.
That's so true.
Are you looking forward? Do you like going to the feshes?
Well, I usually go to our own fesh every January. That's the Hession Fesh. I like to go to that, and it's usually very, very well supported. And then, of course, as I was saying, I loved going to the Worlds when Clare and all that gang were dancing. I loved that.
I remember you coming over to me and saying, "This is." Costume. What do you think of the color of it?
I remember you.
Our first orange one.
You were one of the first to pick Clare. I remember that so well.
Yeah, I remember saying she'll win a world.
You did. You said you're so right.
Yeah, well, to me it was pretty obvious. She was dedicated, and she had everything. You know, she had the stamina. She had. I mean, slipjig was stunning. And I loved watching her slipjig. It was just it was a slipjig. Lots of movement, rocks and cross beams, and it was elegant. And that was a very strong age group. But those girls could have won. Do you know
the making of a champion like Clare that won 6 worlds? You know, a lot of things have to be right. Apart from her great talent and her ability, Clare had a wonderful mother who was always there for her. She never ever pushed her. It wouldn't matter if she went to a fesh and got nothing, and that hardly ever happened. But Mary always took the good with the bad, and she'd always say, whatever happened on the day will happen. And, you know, I think her mum had a very big part of it. Myself now.
But don't you think that that's true of every child, of every? It takes a village.
Yes.
To make a child, if you like, or to develop a child. And I think myself that the champions are the ones that, if they haven't got the parents behind them, they have got to be ultra committed themselves.
Yes. Yes.
But in most cases, I think they have to have the talent, they have to have the work ethic, they have to be able to afford to go to the competitions, have the costume, have the parents behind them, and have everything has to combine to make a champion. Isn't made out of fresh air.
That's for sure. That's for sure. They're hard to come by. Very hard to come by.
Very hard, and even harder to stay up there.
Definitely.
You know, I think, you know, sometimes once they get to world level, it takes an almost a superhuman level of determination to stay there. She never seemed to want to lose. She, you know, when you look at her being interviewed, she just struck me as somebody who almost practiced more watching her on the TV when on that documentary that was done. To stay up there.
Yes.
Stay at that level, you know.
Now there was one thing about Clare. Clare came to me when she was about 5, and I just knew from the time she started, she had the most magnificent pair of little feet. So she was always good all up along. But when she kind of came to about the 11 mark, she nearly had everything that was perfect, but she couldn't get kind of power and rhythm into her feet. And it's hard to get her to do it. But I think, now I could be wrong when I say this, I think herself, she knew that she had a lovely, elegant style, that she didn't want to feel she was going banging the floor or... Now, listen, I could be totally wrong, but it just took so long to get Clare to get that power into her feet. And she didn't get it till she was 17.
That's right. She was actually a slow burner.
Took her all those years to get it. But she persevered. She persevered and she worked and she got it.
But I think at some stage it either clicks or it doesn't click with people in every sport. They either say to themselves, look, I'm going to do it now and I'm going to do it. But again, they have to have the parent behind them. And sometimes a parent who's pushing all the time is the best thing. So Clare's mother, the fact that she was the type that if Clare didn't win, she was just as happy.
Didn't bother her a bit, not a bit.
But she still supported her.
Oh yeah, and you know, I think the most thing was we had such fun times and fun and crack and enjoyed ourselves.
Is that more important to you, Celine, to remember the fun times than to remember the victories?
Of course it is. Of course, it's all about the bit of fun and the bit of crack, and you have to have that in life. My God, if you haven't, you know, you just.
What was it like for you, Celine, when Donncha died? I know you said you found it hard to believe that Donncha. Well, he had been a partner of yours at such an intimate level, I suppose, for so long. I know from my dance partners, you knew when they were in a bad mood by the very way they held your hand when they were dancing, or you knew if they were off form or if they were on form. How did you?
I think what happened to me was for a long time after, when I say long now, I mean years, I just, the heart kind of went out of me. That's the only way I describe it now. And I could never bear to look back at any videos or anything. That's the only way I could describe it, really. That your heart's just, you know, something happens to you. And then from once I kind of began to accept things, I started again then watching things and enjoying them, and you know, it all came back, but it took time, you know.
Because it's safe to say he was really in your life from the age of
17
onwards for 30 years, and you probably more of him than you saw of your family because of the nature of
Yeah.
dancing,
Yeah.
and it's very hard to actually cope with a loss, something like that. You're
sudden, and it was sudden heart attack. Yeah, sudden.
oh,
He just dropped dead. He just dropped dead in work with a load of food of his work up here. Just dropped. That was it.
How old was Donncha when he died?
In his mid-50s. Yeah. Yeah.
My dad died the same way, 58, 59. He just dropped dead.
Yes.
And that you can't cope with it, the suddenness of it, how healthy Donncha was.
Oh, he was.
And the fact that not only were you losing Donncha, but you were losing, I suppose, in a sense, you were losing your everything you had known, which was dance.
That's true. Yeah. Oh, we had a great friendship, like. Yeah, great friendship, really, and fun, great fun. You know, we went to so many places. God, all over the globe. We just went everywhere, and we did an awful television work, and we always loved it, and we enjoyed it, and it was a great time. You know, and I was just so lucky. It's just like luck how you meet somebody, and as I said, if I hadn't been in Cashel that day, I'd never have met him. You know.
And if you hadn't been approached by RTE about that,
that's how it all happened.
Things, it's strange the way things are supposed to happen. If you were looking back on your time,
yeah, it's kind of fate, really. It's just fate. It happens, and that's it. Like, you know.
But to look back on your time in dancing now, what is and someone was to ask you, or I'm asking you, what was your greatest achievement in dancing?
Well, I'd say really,
personally,
I kind of loved the way it all kind of started, and that's the truth now. That's the most things I love too, how everything kind of fell into place and how things kind of started and happened and the whole lot. And then meeting Donncha, of course, was fantastic. Now I can remember maybe about in the mid-70s when I would have had a really good school, you know, and for the conics, like I'd have 4 hands, 6 hands, 8 hands, 16 hands, and I'd have a load of teams, and you'd have solo dancers, and I have to say that was always stressful. I found that awful stressful.
Did you prefer performing to teaching?
Sorry?
Did you prefer performing to teaching?
Oh, much more so. No, I loved the teaching, but I used to hate the day of a big competition, you know, because I just felt I used to let the pressure get to me a bit, you know.
Yeah. Some people are performers and some people are teachers, and it's funny, as I said earlier, some of the best teachers don't always make the best dancers, vice versa. But I loved performing. I was nervous until I got on stage. Once I was on stage, and the bigger the audience, the better. Did you feel the same, or did you like a small audience, or did you like a huge audience?
No, we nearly always had a big audience, you know. And another lovely thing that I look back on in the 30 years when we danced together, I never once remember having one bit of a nerve in my body that I was anyway nervy. Never. Never.
Never. Loved it. It was a passion.
Yeah, just danced. Yeah. And then here I'd be then at a fashion when they'd be doing 4 hands and 6 hands. I'd be up to there because I'd be waiting for them to make a mistake or something. You know, that type of thing. It's amazing how the two things like.
So it's safe to say that Irish dancing and dance is in your blood, and it's something that is never going to it's never going to be separated from you in any way. You're always going to be.
Certainly it came from the music with me anyway, because I always had music from a very young age. There was always music in the house, you know, and it all came from that. Without a doubt, the love for music, really.
But you know, I mean, people often think, as I say, you know, I'll do lots of things inside my steps, and I'll do fill every bar of music, And sometimes I think when people are doing set dances, the interpretation of the set is almost more important than filling every single bar of music with beats.
Yes.
Sometimes it's the down part of a set that's
Yes.
important as the rhythm.
Yes.
Especially sets like The Downfall of Paris, The King of the Fairy. Tony Tyrrell used to say to me, what he used to love was when you go out and you'd see a Kilkenny races that told the story of the Kilkenny races, or the Bonaparte's retreat, and you'd see the retreat, or the Kilkenny races, and you could say that is a race, or that's a horse. And sometimes now when you see dancers and it could be anything. They're not telling a story.
Yes.
You know, and it comes back to the music, your love of music, and telling a story through music or telling a story through dance.
Yes.
And I think that's important.
Yes.
So what would be your biggest advice for anybody before we finish? What would be your biggest advice for any teacher starting off now, or any dancer starting off in competition?
Well, I would say work as hard as you can, because hard work never killed anybody, you know, but enjoy it and don't let it get to you, and don't let it affect your life. Have other things outside your dancing, have your hobbies, you know, and because if you don't, having hobbies and things are great for taking your mind off things. And I think you just have to be the boss of your own mind, and that's it. Because it happened to me, and I know, and that's why I advise anyone, you know, think of yourself and work hard, teach your dancers, but then when it's finished, it's finished. You know what I mean? And then when it comes to the day of your competition, enjoy it, because you can't do anything about it that day. They're on their own up on the stage. They've got to perform. You know,
it's very easy to say, isn't it, Celine?
Yeah.
When you're sitting down in the audience and your dancer is on stage, or your child is on stage.
Yes.
You know, you'd almost want to go up and do it for them instead of them. You know, it's so nerve-wracking. It's very hard to disassociate yourself from it.
That's it.
But Celine Hession, thank you, dancer extraordinaire and teacher extraordinaire. Thank you so very, very much.
Very welcome, Mary. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Slán.
Bye.
Bye.